All right, so over the last two videos in this playlist, we typed up the instructions to open a scene for rendering in with Pygame for a 2D game, and then we turned around and created an object that would write those instructions for us so that we never have to type that again. So this time let's do the same thing. Go ahead and get a 3D game set up the same way and just kind of open a scene. So I chose Panda3D. This was something developed by Disney. It's a very powerful game engine, so there's a lot of tools to work with. But again, I'm going to just add things into this game writer object to fit my needs in particular, and kind of basically just scavenge that game engine for parts to use, for tools to use. So there are a whole lot of folders that imported with Panda3D. A whole lot of scripts and folders and a large number of things that we'll see as this series progresses. But to open a scene, one of those folders that was installed was a folder called Direct, and inside of that folder there is a folder called Showbase, and inside of that is another folder called Showbase, which contains a module called Showbase. So we'll go ahead and import this object. I'll go ahead and hit save now. What is this? I'll call it test3.py, testing a Pygame. So we'll import this object that was in somewhere in that large number of folders that were installed with Panda3D. And well, really at this point, we could just go to that object and do showbase, the constructor, and then call a .run method on it. Save that, and I'm in the right folder, so I could, at this point, can already call test3.py. And that's all it takes to open our Panda3D rendering window. But it's much better form to put this on an object because we can't really customize it here, but a whole lot of stuff is built in. This has our cameras, rendering and lighting and a whole lot of things, and we'll probably want to customize. So instead of just running that directly, we want to set up an object that we can customize to fit our needs. So I'm going to create a class. I'll call it scene to match what we named our, well, I'll look at this, to match what we called our 2D rendering area. So scene, and that's going to inherit from showbase. So it gets all of those things that's just up and ready to run. So we'll define the initialization. And again, I'm just going to, init and then self. And again, I'm just going to add the pieces as I come across them. I'm just going to start making games, and every time I add something new, I'm going to turn around and generalize it, and so that it can be reused over and over and over again. So obviously the first thing we want to do is call the constructor from the parent class. And well, at this point, just open the window. That's all we really need to do. We'll come back and put stuff in it, but then for testing, we can go ahead and game equals an instance of that scene object we just created, and then we can call game.run. Come over here and give that a test. Yep, so that's all it takes to open the window. So let's go ahead and put that into our game writer object the same way we did the 2D object. So I'll come down here somewhere and create another class called Game Writer 3D. And go ahead set up the initialization method. No, we'll need the self. There's probably some other stuff we're going to want to bring in. And once again, we have some sections. So there's an import section. There's our main scene section. I guess I'll call it the scene section. And then this one has a run section. And then a graceful shutdown is built into this one. So we don't have to worry about doing that manually. So looks like there's 3 sections so far. So we'll have self.imports is going to be a list. Self dot main scene is going to be a list, and self dot run game will be a list. So right now we have 3 sections, and we can copy these lines over. So this is going to be our main import every time because that has a whole lot of stuff ready to go. So copy that, come over to the writer, and that will always be the first thing in the imports line. So don't need to do that after initializing in any special methods or anything. I'm immediately going to do this line, so I'll copy that over into the section where it goes. That'll be the first thing in our main scene section, or whatever you want to call it. So obviously it would make a lot more sense since you're doing something that you can reuse to give it the names that make the most sense to you. Then the next line we have this jump right into our initialization. So comma, paste that in. And we're in Python, so I want to make sure and tab that over. So just the escape sequence for a tab. Then what we call the parent object here in our main scene. And that gets tabbed over twice. Tab, tab. Save this. And, well, that finishes it for that section. So then we can go ahead and initialize this. So this part, for now I'm going to put it in the writer. This might be removed from the writer and we'll just create the object and then call it from somewhere else later. But for now, I'll paste this in here along with game.run, and those are the outer levels, so we don't need to make any adjustments. Yeah, so now there's nothing special. We have every line of code copied over already, so we can just basically do the write game method now. Paste that in there, and yeah, it's going to copy a whole lot from this. We don't have any special methods, so we'll just open this, paste that in there. Oh, there's something we'll need. We do need a title, so make sure that's the first thing passed in. Self.title. Oh, whoops. Pass in a title, which will be a required argument. So then self.title equals title. And I'm just going to leave them accessible. And obviously, whichever you prefer. If you would rather do the semi-static version that counts as private in Python, and then put a bunch of getter and setter methods, go ahead and do it that way. Just do what works best for you. So we do have to pass in the title. Then we'll write that file. Better add some space here. And now all we need to do is loop through these lists we put together, which we're coming on 10 minutes. So I'm going to pause the video while I type that, and we'll look at the result afterwards. So obviously nothing too special there. Just loop through the list, print out each line in the list, and we're in Python, so remember to add the new line. And now we can give this a test run. So we want a GameWriter3D object, and this will be test game 2. So I'm going to save that, and give it a test. So Python GameWriter.py. Oh, it says it wrote a file. No error messages. There's test game 2. If we open this up to give it a check, so we have our import. Looks like we inherit from the showbase class, and right now all we do is call the parent constructor method, then get an instance of our child of the showbase class, and then run it. So it looks like everything came through there. And come over here and give this a test with a double click, hoping that it works. Double click where we won't even be able to see error messages. So here's hoping. Oh, there we go. So we now have our GameWriter object. The main point of this tutorial is can initialize a 2D rendering space and a 3D rendering space. So we never really have to type those lines again. And yeah, so now we're ready to start doing things in both of those spaces. And yeah, that's how this playlist is going to go. We'll just walk through a test run, put something together to test it, make sure it works. And then we'll turn around and put that into our GameWriter object so that it writes those instructions for us. And that way we have something very, very reusable. So really what we're creating is a way to interface with these game engines, which means that at some point later, it'll be very easy to create a graphical user interface to interface with those game engines. And then we can just lean back in a comfy chair and drag our mouse around to get everything done. So I guess in the next video, we'll get into some images. I'll show the tools I prefer for 2D and 3D imaging, and we'll bring in some objects to render in our rendering scenes that we have set up. See you in the next video.